Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tal. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerer's Guild. Today on Magical Theory, we are going to be talking about the concept of high magic versus low magic. Okay, so we had a discussion on this in the guild recently, and the definitions of what constitutes high magic versus low magic, even in the guild, varied quite widely. In fact, after researching the concept more thoroughly, I have come to the conclusion that there are as many concepts of high magic versus low magic as there are schools of spellcraft, and possibly as varied as there are spell users. So, for my own purposes, I define high magic as magic that takes place on the astral realm, and low magic as magic that takes place on the energetic equivalent of the material plane. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Okay, so when we are using high magic, we are reaching up to the astral plane. Anytime we are calling upon gods, spirits, angels, demons, any spirits that exist on the astral plane, we are using high magic. When we are doing necromancy, fey work, anything calling upon nature spirits, any type of elementals, this is low magic because we are calling upon beings that exist within the energetic equivalent of the material plane. When we do basic spell work, if we are working on the astral plane, it is high magic. If we are working with within the natural laws, then it is low magic. Okay, so before we get further into this concept, I feel that we need to put it into context. All spells are affected on the mental plane. There are three states, or three planes of being that a spell operates on. We have the mental plane. This is the area of thought. This is where we come up with our intent for our spells. If we want to look at existence as a tapestry that is being woven or sewn, the mental plane is the needle. This is where our awareness comes from. The eye of the needle, if you will. This is where our perception originates from, is on the mental plane. And below that, we have the astral plane. This is the realm of desire, emotion. This is where our souls are housed. This is also where our dreams take place and where we go in between lives. We never leave the mental plane. And we never actually leave the astral plane because we are a soul. But our primary focus varies between the physical plane and the astral plane. So, below the astral plane then, we have the physical world, the material plane. The world in which I am filming this video through this camera, and you are looking at it upon a screen. That is the material world. Equivalent or adjacent to the material world, we have the energetic equivalent to the material world. I like to use the term umbra. There are many different terms for this in-between, if you want to call it that. The area between the astral plane and the physical plane. We're not talking about the veil. That is a different concept. We're talking about the energetic equivalent of the material plane. Okay, so we have these three states of being. Now, when we use high magic, we'll start there still. And I do want to state that this idea of high magic versus low magic, some people get the idea that this makes one greater and the other lesser, one good, the other evil, things like that. At least for me, that is not part of the idea at all. It is simply that one is reaching up to the astral plane, and one is working on more a level, the same level as us, simply the energetic form of it. Okay, so, as I said, all spells begin on the mental plane with your intent. The difference begins when you get to form. So, sigil work is actually high magic. I'm sure a lot of people, once you hear me say that, you're going to immediately disagree, because a lot of people have a concept of ceremony and ritual and complexity in high magic. For me, as I said, it's just magic that takes place on the astral plane. So sigil work, anything where we are making symbols that bend the energy around a situation, this is high magic, because that is operating from the astral plane. So, when you cast a sigil, you are creating an astral form that bends the energy affecting situations. As I said before, if the mental plane is the needle, then the astral plane is the thread, and the physical plane is the canvas. So we are affecting the thread as it comes into the canvas. We are affecting the probability of future outcomes to manifest our desires. So this is taking place on the astral plane. Okay, so low magic. How does low magic operate? Low magic, we still are starting on the mental plane. When we come up with a desire, our intent, we still have, but the difference is in how we create our form. We have to work, when we are casting low magic, we have to work within the natural laws of magic. First and foremost of them being the law of sympathetic magic. Like attracts like. That's why when we are using low magic, we need a more direct link to our target. We can't necessarily make a cohesive link from the concept that we looked into their eyes once. We need locks of hair, signatures, something at least that they have touched. A piece of clothing, fingernail clippings, a signature. We've talked about this in previous videos, but we want these more direct links for low magic, because it's essentially we're operating through quantum entanglement. And with this type of magic, yeah, like attracts like. You can't take a black heart and use it as a spell component to improve someone's mood. That's kind of a bad example, but we have to stick with the ingredients that work. Belief imparts reality is a factor here, in that what we believe into the jar helps sew the form together, but the pieces still have to work in low magic. In high magic, if you phrase things funky, if your sigil winds up being drawn just a little bit wrong, it's still very responsive to your will. It's not going to go off somewhere completely wild. It might manifest a little odd, but it's still going to be in the same general direction of what it was you were trying to cast. With low magic, if you were to, say, cast a spell to hasten someone's time in court, in jail, to get them out of jail quickly, and the recipe called for cinnamon, and you, for some reason, didn't have cinnamon and chose to add molasses, well, you are going to have a problem. It's going to counteract your spell. Even if you dry the molasses up, grind it up, make it look like cinnamon, and believe wholeheartedly that it's cinnamon as you put it into the spell. Well, if you're working within the natural laws and low magic, what the spell ingredient actually is, what its energy is, its energetic equivalent to what it is on the material plane, has more momentum, it has more oomph, more power. And it's going to overpower your belief of it being cinnamon, and in the form, that's actually going to be something that's going to take away from the spell and slow down whatever it is that you're working with. You can come up with lots of examples of this, but there is problems with substituting ingredients, and you do have to know what you were doing with bottle work and things like that, because, like I said, But the most important law to keep there is like attracts like. You have the, a good way to say this is the law of perceptions holds less sway over low magic than the law of aesthetics does. The momentum of what things have come to represent, what they are in the mind of the general psyche, not just in your mind. Less personal, like I said, more a science with low magic, with high magic being more of an art. Okay, so ideally, we should be putting these two things together to create the most potent form of magic. I discuss the creation of egregores, specifically. In fact, I have a video on the creation of a bottle egregore. This is a good example of a combination of the two. I give the egregore an astral form, but then when I charge it, I am using bottle work. I am using specific ingredients that are designed to enhance the abilities of the egregore. And I'm specifically using seeds, physical life force that has a very large energetic equivalent. And I'm using this energy to create a form, but then also because I have created an astral form, I am manipulating that form from the astral to sew it together more cohesively, adding the two ingredients together, adding the two types of magic together to create a more cohesive and efficient spell work. In fact, ideally, we should be taking all three planes into consideration. We want to take the mental plane into consideration because we want to consider the psychological impacts. This is the belief imparts reality, of course, with the mental plane is extremely potent. The farther we get from the mental plane, the less impact it has, and the more impact the law of aesthetics has. So, when we want to create, when we do our spells, we want to take into account all three areas. So we want to consider the psychological impact on the mental plane. We want to be using the astral plane to create the origin of the form and aim our intent, and we want to be using low magic to give it oomph, to give it direct force on the physical plane. And that's why we want to, even with when we are combining all three, we want to keep our ingredients in line with our spell work. Try not to substitute anything that is completely out of line with what we are doing, and keep everything cohesive in an aesthetic flow and pattern, so that it has an efficient means of traversing all three planes, linking all together, and causing a more efficient spell. Okay, so hopefully I didn't get too rambled on in all of this, and I was clear in what I was saying. If you have any questions on what I mean in any of this, or in any video that I have made or will make in the future, please feel free to ask questions in the comments. I will get to them eventually. Sometimes I'm a little slow, but I will answer them eventually. Okay, so that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you once again for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. And don't forget to join us next time. Until then, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.